right, we are here super excited to be in front of the Legacy Haunt Store and Museum 50th anniversary with two people that helped make this thing in a major way a reality. So real quick, guys, could you introduce yourselves before we go in and start experiencing this really attraction?
Hi everybody, my name is Ted Dougherty. I'm writer and director at Plague Productions.
I am Jon Cooke. I am owner, creative director, designer, builder, manager, project manager of Plague Productions.
Perfect. Is there anything before, because I know we're going to spend the bulk of the time inside looking around, but is there anything you wanted to kind of talk about before we go inside the door in terms of the exterior of this location?
That's me right there.
There we go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's me. So there's a lot of Easter eggs on the window wrap outside, but overall, yeah, these are friends and important monsters from the past, and so that's a little Easter egg of me when I was in the swamp. And so, yeah, there's a lot to look at on the windows, but let's go inside and check things out. So,
all right, so we are inside the store. One of the first questions I wanted to just ask, and we can just then go from there, but this location, this idea, this concept, like, if people are familiar with this location at all, normally there's like snow babies and the Grinch, and it's like Christmas and cowboys, and then the idea of this being transformed into this, that's like, I think was a shock to a lot of people, and the idea that it could be open day for day guests in the marketplace and during the week, and then at night for Scary Farm guests to come in. How did that kind of come to be? Do you recall like where the idea of like this location and just making all of this here?
So we worked very closely with Cedar Fair, the parent company, their creative department, and Ken Parks, and so working with the corporate, we kind of came out to Knott's and we were kind of scoping things out. By the time we got involved, I think they kind of already sort of landed on this as a location because they realized that there was a way to have access during Knott's Scary Farm through the back as well as out here on Grand Avenue. So that was already sort of decided upon by the time we got involved, from what I remember.
And I think it was a really smart and important decision to put it here and have access. Being able to come into the store without a park ticket, not just for sales, but I think you're introducing a whole new generation of people that are going to come and experience a taste of Knott's Scary Farm that necessarily aren't going to come to the event. And hopefully those seeds are planted, and as you know, if they're kids and they get older and they become diehard fans, maybe this is where it all starts for them. So I think we were really excited about that. And then also, yes, this store, when we first came in here, it was a big yellow and pastel green box. But you know, we were able to successfully transform Camp Snoopy into a zombie apocalypse. So we figured, hey, we should be able to handle this.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm guessing both of you visited the 40th anniversary museum in the park. And so did that way back in those days, I mean, I would imagine you never thought, like, someday we're going to design the 50th anniversary, like the biggest anniversary. But that said, did you ever, during the process of doing this, think back on that one and kind of being there as a fan or as a guest or just as an employee?
Absolutely. So that was a starting point, right, of knowing, okay, that standard was set with the 40th museum. And that's right in the heart, that was in the heart of Ghost Town. So it's like, okay, that was a centralized location, so how is it going to be here, sort of on the outskirts of the event and all of that. But to what Jon was saying, it's like, what was really a cool thing that happened is that it does work as an introduction to Knott's Scary Farm. So for folks who may be a little bit too scared to go into Knott's Scary Farm, they can kind of test the waters here and see thematically what's happening without monsters fully attacking them.
Right. And it really did like eventize things, because like that announcement event, like this line went past like the Ghost Rider entrance there, like everybody needed to go in, and I feel like everybody that comes here as a Scary Farm fan has to visit if they're open. Like I know every time we come here, whether it's daytime, nighttime, we have to stop in here and check it out.
And that was the intent, was to approach this like an attraction and make it a destination that people had to see. And just speaking on the 40th, I think it's a good time to bring up our good friend Jeff Shattuck from Park Decor. He spearheaded the 40th. That was all him. And when we got into this project, he did such a wonderful job that we all loved with that. So we worked very closely with him on a lot of these elements. And he was able to provide a lot of, as we get further in here into the museum, you'll see a lot of things that he's kind of collected over the years that he's been able to bring in here and display again.
I love it. So, want to tell us where we're at here? So, for people that may not be able to visit, maybe they're on the East Coast, is during day operations, people come in here and this is the first room they see. Nighttime is kind of the middle of the attraction, but where are we at now?
So, the trick-or-treat maze that was here at Knott's Scary Farm a handful of years ago was extremely popular. Yep. Many people's favorite maze.
Yep.
And then Jon was part of the team that helped sort of reimagine that when it was Trick-or-Treat Lights Out with the flashlights and all that. And so mixing that with the fact that during the 40th anniversary, Knott's introduced their sort of new icon, which was the Green Witch, which is Sarah Marshall. And so here was an opportunity. There was very little discussion. This had to happen. We needed to have sort of the Green Witch's section here. And right behind the camera here is the iconic staircase that allowed guests, that kind of welcomed guests as they went into the original trick-or-treat. And so the team did such a wonderful job in sort of recreating that and using this as a photo opportunity. And so this was an opportunity generally to allow guests to really kind of explore the Green Witch's house.
And right on cue, the Green Witch, this is the original actress for the Green Witch. That was part of the 40th celebration. That's her on the t-shirts. This is her. This video is from the Origins attraction. And fun fact, Sarah Marshall, her real name is Sarah.
Perfect.
Fun fact.
Yes. And that's what, I mean, it really feels like so much of this event, and this really started in ways with Origins, which is maybe a topic for another day, but I know for fans, we still have Origins to enjoy in the park, but it's so cool being able to live a part of it out here and seeing this, and then Trick or Treat, obviously a classic there. Are there any kind of Easter eggs or particular points of interest that you want to point out in here, or things you just love or don't love?
Well, we have
a couple here.
We have Ted's appearance, number 2.
Okay.
Yes.
As his ghost town character among the many portraits of the various forms of the Green Witch.
Yes, so right there at the head of the stairs is my werewolf character, my first iteration of my ghost town character, Rage the Werewolf, and that is with the longest running Green Witch street character in Ghost Town, and so I was happy to work alongside with her. And so but along the wall, aside from that, are various versions of that character, as well as a character photo from The Hanging as well. So this is very much kind of a deeper homage to the Green Witch. But we were mentioning Jeff Shattuck earlier, and he helped provide these wonderful exhibits, these museum exhibits of these costumes of the Green Witch and the Overlord character, which was an icon in the late 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. But this is actually the costume from the filming of the commercial of the Overlord, as opposed to one that was worn out during the event. And then there's a little Ghost Town character sample. But these are really cool, a couple cool examples of Jeff Shattuck's contributions.
Was there ever a temptation to just make this whole room the Overlord and nothing else?
No. But real quick, Jon was really like this huge gaping mouth that we see here. That was something that I remember Jon very excited about, and was like, "Hey, let's make sure we implement that."
Yeah, we needed in this transition, which we'll see on the other side in a little bit, but we needed it to work both ways here for Trick or Treat with the Green Witch, and on the other side in Ghost Town. And so we wanted to go with this kind of opening that looks a little rough on the other side as well. So big shout out to concept artist Raise Up, who I worked with to kind of design this out, and then sculpt it on foam, covered in concrete. Here it is. And then this is fun too. A fun thing here we have, for anybody that remembers the Green Witch with her tricksters, and these masks were pulled from the original molds of the trickster that the Knott's props department still had in their shelves, so we were able to grab those.
We've noticed a lot of people don't notice the chair the first or couple times maybe, and then they see it and they're like, whoa.
Which is
nice
funny because it was just one of those things where we had it and didn't know what to do with it, and so it ended up there. And
it works.
Which is about 50% of set dressing, I'd say.
Right.
And real quick, just to like, if we look closely at these walls and the kind of goo and all that, I mean, there's a lot of attention that the entire team kind of paid in creating not just this environment, but all the different environments that we'll get into as we go deeper inside.
All right, let's go.
Okay, we're going deeper inside.
So I know for us, the first time we walked into this room, I mean, it's a big room, and you've got the tombstones. And the first thing we had wondered, which was not correct, was like, are these going to be the focus for the 50th anniversary in terms of like, it's going to be these ones, but in the end, it celebrates a lot of history there, either history that some of us lived or some of us have read about maybe in Ted's book or things like that. What were some of the choices about the tombstones? Were there any like musts for any of you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? There's so many good mazes in Scary Farm history to touch upon, but I think we just kind of kicked it around and zeroed in on mazes that we thought were important to represent, and also just ones that were important to us. Like for me, there's two right here next to each other that have a special place, Hatchet High, which is where I started my career here at Knott Scary Farm as an actor, 2005. And then Paranormal Inc., which is After Infected was my first walkthrough haunted attraction that I've ever designed. And then all the way to Tension Chambers, Revenge of the Dead, all the way down.
Yeah, and like Revenge of the Dead, I pushed for that because I'm such a huge fan of what that maze was. It was one of the earlier examples of an actual, what ultimately would become a maze designer, came to work at Knott's. Larry McCauley. That was the first attraction he designed for Knott's Scary Farm, and it was just one of my favorites. It was over where Accelerator is now, but it was just this massive, awesome zombie maze way before the Walking Dead zombie craze. So that was more of, it did have historic relevance, but also personal importance too.
Right. So in terms of the other aspects of this room and stuff, we've got the trees in here, we've got the tombstones, all of that. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the general concept of this room.
I mean, really, it serves as a kind of just a general transition for the store. We needed something that worked for every scene that you can see from here, which is the Rotunda, Carnival, and going back into the house. We just needed kind of a nice space. This is for anybody that's familiar with my team, my scenic team. This is the Cliff LeBlanc special.
Gotcha.
Originally, there's these giant pillars here that we didn't want just in the middle of the room, and he came up with this whole plan of doing these big, cool sculpted trees around and all these crypts with the tombstones above them. But other than that,
it's pretty straight ahead. But right here, these are permanent kind of structures that are part of this building. This building is very, very old. At least parts of this building are very, very old, and so. I don't know if this is like Adobe or whatever, but I mean, the designs had to be created and built around these different structures, same as what Jon was saying about disguising these massive pillars that were just right smack dab in the middle of this. But also what ultimately ends up happening is we have this kind of big space, but then it kind of gets broken up between this little cart and these trees and these kind of little areas here to kind of help create the idea of more of a exploratory meander kind of idea, because the purpose behind this was to really, when we were first talking about it, was to create this immersive retail experience where it was really kind of all-encompassing narratively, but also celebrating the past. So it wasn't just, hey, let's do a scary idea over here. It's like, no, this is all purposeful, that are tied, all these items are all tied back to the 50th.
Before we move on, I got a couple of fun facts.
Please, thank you.
Gargoyles. Those are the gargoyles that used to be around the fountain in
Charleston Circle.
Yes. So those came from another Jeff Shattuck help there. This cart was not part of the original plan, but we couldn't get it out of the building.
Wow.
So it became our coffin cart. So this is always part of
the Emporium.
So going into the Emporium is like we take my mom to Knott's once a week. We have to go to the Emporium once a week, so she was sad when it was closed down, but she loved it when it opened up. I did not even realize the way you had repurposed that, and we come here like once a week, so that's really incredible. Wow.
And it's I mean, it's real, right? This thing was dragged down a dirt road by a horse at some point in time, and here it is.
It fits perfect in here.
So that's fun.
Well, and these trees, like I mean, when we walked in, it's just there's trees and there's foliage above and there's tombstones, and like you feel like you are in this like swamp type setting, and you don't think about the wood floor that was there and the columns and all of those things, and you step back. But the camouflage is just really incredible all the way around. All right, should we move to next?
Sure. And by the way, working with Carl and Bush from merchandise, I think they really kind of got inspired once they started seeing the items and the assets that we were creating for this. So they even created Legacy Store shirts and jackets and bags and hats and mugs and all of that stuff to really kind of celebrate it even more, which is really kind of fantastic.
Do you remember the first time the two of you walked in here and saw it with some of the merchandise on the shelves?
I do. I was pretty shocked to see, like, I told my wife, Rochelle, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I texted John because I think he had taken off out of town already. And I'm like, they came out with awesome embroidered jackets. He's like, grab me one.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very cool, so I was pleasantly surprised. It was really, really fun.
I did leave town before they got this populated with merch. And it was really awesome to come back, and it really brought the store to life. It really filled it out nice. It was almost that, it's like the first time you see a maze with the actors in it.
Yeah.
It was kind of that feeling when you first came in here and saw it with merchandise.
Yes.
Well, it's surreal if we go back to the 40th, and we love that little museum we had, and it felt like that's as good. To me, it felt like that's as good as life gets, that we have that museum there, and we had like maybe one T-shirt that year, and maybe one sweatshirt, and you're like, they're really recognizing, this is amazing. And then to obviously fast forward to this, it must be hard. In that vein, like I know it can be tough to kind of step back, but like, how surreal is it now? Not that we're at the end of the finish line here, but we're getting closer and closer to Halloween night. People are loving the various things we've worked on with the 50th anniversary. People are loving the store. Have you had any time to kind of step back and not be?
So I think when we were first brought into the fold to work on the Legacy Store, Chilling Chambers maze, there was this, I don't know about you, but this crazy weight I felt of having to deliver on such a huge moment for this event. We really wanted all the fans. We thought about all our friends throughout the years, wanting them to love this.
Yeah.
So I think I felt this pressure throughout the entire process of really wanting to deliver. And the whole time, I guess it's a creative thing. You're like, is it good enough? Are people going to like it? So then once it opens and people respond to it, and you see people enjoying it, it's like, to me, as a creative, it's probably the best feeling in the world.
I bet.
To really, it's like, yes, this worked, people like it, it was a fun process.
It's a fun process. It's weird, but luckily I get to work with this one here, and so I've seen plenty of his attractions come to life. And so once we landed on the creative, it was like, okay, I was very confident. Once we were seeing Ray's concept arts and concept art and everything, it's like, okay, this is going to be awesome, and I felt very confident that this was going to be something that the fans would appreciate, because don't forget, we are all fans here, and so we created what we would want to see for the 50th anniversary. So not just the Legacy Store, but for Cinema Slasher as well as Chilling Chambers. But it's just like for this specific spot, it's been really, it's always a little surreal. It's weird. It's very weird when we were first here earlier today, and there's guests walking around and they're shopping. And you could see the looks in their eyes of they're like, whoa, it's pretty spectacular.
Well, I remember, I think it was a little after the announcement event maybe, so this was already open, but I remember asking you at Universal Studios Hollywood, and it's just kind of the same question, how surreal is it, how good does it feel, and you're do you think about it? They're no, because what I said, it's overwhelming when you're waiting for the response. I could totally get that. But standing here in it and thinking when you first started working in that maze, or the first time you applied for a job at Knott's, it must be overwhelming, and it's obviously really ridiculously cool. I know I felt overwhelmed, like, we're doing this because we've been fans, and like the fact that we can sit in here and talk about all this, but for you guys to create this, I mean, it's got to be like a life-altering kind of year in some ways to kind of take that all in.
It's definitely a full circle year for sure. I mean, just as as you're saying, like being a kid working in Hatchet High and going to all the slider practices and watching seasons of Screams on repeat. It's like a very full circle, very fulfilling moment. It's not a task we took lightly, and took a lot of honor putting it together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll get more into it the deeper we get in, but now we have a choice. So we created choices so we could go left, right. Why don't we go inside the rotunda?
All right, let's do it.
So here we are in the rotunda, and one thing that is important to note is that in the earlier stages, this was tied heavily to the chilling chambers. And so the first room that you go into when you enter the chilling chambers attraction, you kind of go into this broken rotunda, and that's almost very similar to this. And so that was very much kind of an inspiration going both ways. But there are a handful of deep Easter eggs in this portion of the store. But before we get into all that, this was here, this big photo opportunity here was the focal point of the Midsummer Scream booth. And so this was something that was already created off-site that we were able to kind of get people a little bit excited as to what was going to be coming to the store when they saw this.
Definitely. Do you remember when this idea first came up? Because this has become a really, I think, iconic part. As you said, back to Midsummer Scream, I mean, thousands and thousands of people have their photo in front of this, whether it's from in here or there. Do you remember the first time you saw that sketched out, or it was sketched out?
I don't even remember how this one came to be. We wanted a big monument piece that kind of said what it is, right? We have the 50th, we have the years that it's on there. So it was kind of a piece where you just, to really represent the event that's coming, stylistically as well. But once again, big shout out to who raised up our in-house concept artist that put this together. He really took the ideas and put it to paper and then brought to life.
Yeah, and he sketched out various options to kind of, and then it was really kind of John and Ray kind of zeroing in on like, okay, let's go with this. And then real quick, I think it might be worth it to talk a little bit about the process, since we're sort of in the center of this whole thing, on what it took to actually build this thing. Because we're standing on carpet. I think that was after the store was cleared. That was one of the first things that came in. But I came in often to check and see all of this being built. And so, watching everybody the team put all of this stuff up. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So this project, I think we had 3 weeks. It was a 3-week turnaround from the time
Emporium.
From the Emporium closing to this store, or to the announcement event, that we had to turn this over. I don't even know. I just feel like we lived in here. We were 12 to 16-hour days to get this done. A lot of stuff was built off-site. We utilized some great partnerships through Jeff with Sinister Point came in. He brought a crew in and helped us out. Another company called ADF fabricated some of these pieces. And it was just a well-calculated plan that had to come together fast and furious.
Were there any particularly challenging parts of the store to work around that, really needed extra attention?
I don't know if there was anything like particularly challenging, other than wanting to create these nice stone sets that, keeping in mind it all has to come apart, get stored, and hopefully come back in here, right? So that's kind of the biggest challenge, as well as protecting the store. Yeah. So when it can get changed back over for the Emporium regular operations, that we're leaving it unscathed.
Right. It's incredible. So we have another huge photo op in here that people have been loving. Any particular significance to either of you, or just it looks awesome?
So one thing to know is Plate Productions also created variations of what we're seeing in this section at how many other Cedar Fair parks?
9 other Cedar Fair parks, 2 countries and 6 other states, I think.
Yes, and so they had their own variations of basically this kind of haunt store section, and so they had some similar assets of like the kind of the broken columns, and they had their own versions of a throne and all that, but they did not have this emblem here. And so this emblem is an S. That's for our dear friend Sandy Graham, who's no longer with us, but she was the vampire queen for many years at Knott's Scary Farm. She's represented in stained glass inside the chilling chambers in the vampire section. Here's a beautiful painting of Sandy that's kind of represented more from her time in the Labyrinth attraction. But yeah, I mean, Sandy was near and dear to the not only Knott's Berry Farm employee community, but definitely the monster community. And I mean, as far as I know, and I think a lot of longtime Knott's Scary Farm fans would agree that, I mean, Sandy's character, the vampire queen in the original Dominion of the Dead, was like one of the first sort of iconic maze monsters. I mean, this was before we had like the internet and all that stuff, and before UltimateHaunt.com, and so it was just that people just knew that this was somebody that was very important. She was just incredible, and so this is a wonderful tribute that was created for her. And so all these fans that are coming to get their pictures here inside this throne, it's also Sandy is kind of overlooking all of them, which I think is really special.
And if we had to make a vampire throne, we had to make it in her honor. You know, back when I first started as a monster, coming into this haunt community, which it is very much a community, right? You're walking into literal people dressed as monsters, and it can be a little intimidating. And Sandy was always just such a warm, welcoming presence. Made a large impact on me, Ted, and a bunch of other people. And at the end of the day, I think Scary Farm is great because of the people that have come and gone and are still here and stuff. So just our way of just giving a little nod to our friend.
And it's at the center, it's at the heart of this whole attraction, which seems very meaningful. And I mean, I think also this is what those of us that love this stuff so much, beyond just, you know, coming and experiencing cool mazes, is it's like there's a familiarity and a love and a passion. It's like this, it's very clear this store was not just like a paycheck. Obviously everybody needs to make money and pay their bills and take care, but there's a lot more to this than just that, and it translates in so many different ways. I mean, the first time we walked in and saw this, and it's like, oh, you know, so cool.
There's an old saying from my band days, if the music is real, the people will feel. I don't have a cool rhyme for this stuff, but I think it's the same thing, right? You know, if your passion and heart's in it, it translates to the product.
Yes, it definitely translates here. All right, Ted, where do we go from here?
Okay, well, let's go deeper in, and we're going to now go off to the left. All the wonderful merchandise that Carl stocked the shelves with. And so now we're going into another gaping mouth, this time a very evil-looking clown. Because evil clowns, have a very long history at Knott's Scary Farm, going way back to the, at least 1989, 1990, somewhere around there with Uncle Ernie's Madhouse and stuff. So they needed to be represented big time here.
And this was modeled after the Jack in the Box that once resided out in Carnival. So if you look at those
I did
together,
not catch that. Yes.
And this is a piece that we hand sculpted. So it's a pretty fun one.
What a great! That's awesome.
And we've seen people who don't like clowns come in, and my wife is one of them, and they're always a little nervous to come through this threshold.
Through the mouth of the clown.
And as we even enter, we're seeing artwork from Malice in Wonderland and past clown mazes. So these are things that, hey, they look cool. They kind of represent this vibe that we're here, that's the setting that we're inside. However, if you're a longtime fan, you're going to recognize some of these art pieces.
Right.
And I think, you know, as far as the design approach to this area, Carnival I mean, this year they've done a great job with their park decor out there. But up until that point, there hasn't been too much scenic support in that area. So we took some liberties in this area just to create the vibe and the ambiance, and we tried to pepper in all these great pieces that, fun fact, all these cutouts that you're seeing were unscrewed from the ceiling of the props department shop.
Wow.
So we went in there, took them off the ceiling, and put them there, and that's how these were preserved over the years.
That's incredible.
And if you pay attention to the audio in here,
yep,
you will hear a voiceover that comes on, which is from Dark Ride.
Oh.
Which is from the Cube Dark
Got you. I did not pick that up there. I was going to ask with some of the, and there's more as we go to the hallway of some of these pieces that you found, were there any of those that surprised you that were here, or were they things you were already familiar with if they existed?
I worked in the props department for many years,
so you knew.
Going into this project, I knew they were there.
Yeah, because like for us, it was like, whoa, were these in someone's office? Were they in a storage room? Like we had no clue. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
But also one kind of fun fact too, I'm going to scoot over here, is just, you know, of putting in these kind of fun photo opportunities too, because that was something that was kind of important in the early stages, is of making sure that there was photo opportunities for people who are discovering the event for the very first time, all the way to people who've been going to the event since 1973. So these are just kind of, this is like, you know, kind of a ticket booth or cage kind of element. So, but I mean, that's all kind of represented here, but they've got, there's Spidora, you know, which is kind of a typical kind of carnival sideshow illusion, but there was a variation of that in the early days of Knott's Scary Farm. So there's a lot of kind of crossover, but this is a really good general representation of what the clowns have contributed to Knott's Scary Farm throughout the years, not only in mazes, but out in the Carnival Scare Zone.
Right, 100%. Okay.
All right, so we're going deeper inside now.
More incredible sign. This one particularly, like, knocked me over. Like, they're all amazing, but like that one.
I wanted this to be a pin so bad.
Yeah.
Sending it to Carl Knight, please.
Please excuse our dust in preparation of the Halloween Haunt. Tickets now on sale.
So for folks who don't know, this would be, there were signs like this outside of all of the, like the log ride, mine ride, and wherever they were building mazes to kind of warn you that things were kind of scary and inside the attraction. So you knew Knott's Scary Farm was right around the corner when you would see these signs.
So cool. Do you want to talk about the spider exit here?
Yeah, there's a fun little story here. When we were thinking of the operation of how the store is going to flow and work, we had to get, for Scary Farm evening entrance, we have our door over here, but we had to get it back out to the park.
Yeah.
There's only 2 doors, and this is the second one, which actually goes through the Emporium stockroom.
Gotcha, yeah.
So we had to create a tunnel that goes from the Emporium through their stockroom back out into the park.
Wow.
And that's where the spider tunnel kind of comes into play.
This is where we have bought like clearance Christmas ornaments off the shelf, like right there beneath the spider. That's such a different.
Absolutely. But that's kind of just an example of, hey, taking the idea of the theme and the theming of this store and ensuring that messaging is all the way until we cross the threshold to exit. Because some people, hey, listen, we'll just kind of put up some whatever walls and just you get out of the store, your shopping is over. But this is like a full kind of fun experience.
We exited through there last night, and the people in front of us and behind us were like kind of cowering down, like waiting for the monster, and they heard the effects, and you're like, yep, this is awesome.
I'm going to set this up, but then I'm going to let Jon talk about it. So this is something that Jon wanted the entire time, and at first I'm like, what? Like when he was trying to describe it, I'm like, okay. And so I finally understood what he wanted to do, and it came out incredible.
Yeah.
And so, but this was something that was a seed that was planted in Jon's mind like pretty early on when we started saying, okay, we're going to have these kind of facades of Ghost Town or whatever. But Jon, you want to talk a little bit about what it is?
So I have these things as a designer called head movies, I call them, and they're just, I get an idea stuck in my head and kid visualize it, and this is a good representation of my stubbornness of having to fit it in somewhere. And I just love the idea of being inside of an environment and feeling like you can look out the windows into Fog Alley.
Yeah.
So this, while we were building this store, we went out, after working all day, went out into Ghost Town, grabbed a few friends, and filmed this clip. We did it in one take, 15 minutes, and got out of there.
Wow.
And then our film editor Steve was able to turn it around so quickly and get this up and ready before the store opened.
Do you know how long the loop is now?
15 minutes.
It is 15 minutes. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, because we've sat and watched it. It's like it keeps changing and changing in different moments in it, and obviously there's some real all-star faces that we know from the Ghost Town streets in there.
And also, once again, a good introduction to people who have never been to the event to kind of just get a little taste of what it's like.
Yeah.
And in essence, what is kind of happening too is we're sort of in a peek in looking out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a peek out, which is fun. And then off to the right over here, these are the 25th anniversary, 1997. These are reissue posters of older logos that they had in the early days of Knott Scary Farm, which are just wonderful. I actually have the vampire on the upper right up in my garage, but these are just wonderful to see. And again, those are items that for longtime fans, that's going to trigger, because back in the earlier days, I mean, those were the closest thing to any kind of visual icon that Knott Scary Farm would have.
And once again, these were just double-sided taped onto the wall in the props department that we had been staring at for years and years and years and years. I don't even know probably when they went up. And when we were doing the store, it's something that we wanted to be able to share with everybody. So we took them off the wall, got them framed, and
they look brand new there.
Yeah,
they really do.
And you know, something that's really kind of important was to really ensure that we were trying to speak to as many of the generations of Scary Farm as possible. And so we have Knotts that are a lot earlier on, a little bit more recent, and then we couldn't do this without having Elvira represented. I mean, she's the longest running host in Knott Scary Farm's history, and just had such a huge positive impact on the event. And again, this is another Jeff Shattuck massive contribution to the overall story. But behind the camera, the door is where guests enter through Scary Farm. So this is really kind of the first thing that people see, which I think is a really awesome entry statement.
And then just a couple fun things on this. It is signed by Elvira on Halloween night back in 2017. This whole display here was provided by Jeff Shattuck. He did work very closely with Cassandra to help facilitate this whole setup, which, you know, she did just out of passion for the event, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it was very important for us to represent her in here.
It was the first thing we saw when we entered, because I mean, we came and we kind of just naturally to the left, and then we're like, oh wait, what's this? We went over to the peek out area. But yeah, that obviously brings back a lot of memories for any Scary Farm fans of the last couple decades.
Yes. So that covers a lot of ground when as to what I was referring to before about trying to speak to multiple generations. And then these are artifacts. Some of these were represented or present inside the 40th anniversary Haunt Museum. But again, this is Jeff Shattuck, who had a lot of these assets to be able to help us pepper some of these past exhibits in to help this museum section of the store.
Yeah, wasn't he in the 40th museum? Yeah.
He was, yes, the ghost from the mine ride.
That's probably the oldest item in the store.
That was from back in the John Waite days, who was instrumental in bringing Knott Scary Farm to life.
Right.
Over here, we're looking at the desk. This is my desk that was provided by Jeff Shattuck. So this is where I do the book signings and all of that, which has been fun, which is great because I've been able to spend a lot of time here inside the store, visiting with fans and talking with them and doing the book signings and everything. So it's been really kind of my excuse to hang out here and celebrate the 50th anniversary.
I know we made a point like this year, we're like, this, as many home haunts as we do and all that, we wanted to be here more because of the 50th. This is a great plan, though, to really make you be here, too, to really, like, soak it up and all of that.
Yeah, so part of it was Carl saying you have to be here as many possible days, but I wanted to be here, and so it's wonderful. And then I'm lined with not only the exhibits over there, but there's some more exhibits over here. And again, these are all little fun pieces that people can take a look at and either learn about Knott's Scary Farm if it's before their time, or revisit their past memories, their fun memories of attending Knott's Scary Farm. And then over to the corner here is sort of the Elvira corner, and I mean, well, it's Elvira, so of course it's going to have a lot of amazing merchandise to represent her.
Yeah, it feels like she has more merchandise every year, and it's fitting that she's...
Well, for us fans, we're happy about it.
Exactly.
And so over here, it's very important to us. So this, on the flip side of the Elvira exhibit, is this tribute to Seymour, who was the first host of Knott's Scary Farm, and it is pretty much part of the genesis, the concept of Knott's Scary Farm happening back in 1973. So we knew this needed to be represented in a big way. And so, John, let's talk about how it was brought to life.
I mean, this piece really came together just, I think, out of just pure fandom and love for this event and how it started. It was something, day one, when we got involved for the 50th, we said, we're leaning into Seymour. Like, we didn't know what that looked like, but it was going to happen. And this piece was something that spawned out of that. And one of the interesting things is this footage came from Rob Perez. We had no idea existed.
No, and we found it like a couple weeks before Midsummer Scream, and so we debuted it there. But all of a sudden, it's like, because there were talks about like, okay, we got to have some sort of Seymour footage, but there's not a whole lot like on YouTube. But then this worked out perfectly because now it's footage, the only known footage of Seymour performing at Knott's Scary Farm. So now people could see him in action here at the event.
And then we wanted to create a really fun representation of his character. We partnered with a really amazing company called Rib Effects, who custom sculpted, fabricated, and made this Seymour
statue.
Yes.
Yeah,
figure. And we just thought it would be a really neat moment of having the old poster behind him with his character and him on the TV. We just thought it would be just a really wonderful tribute. It's also something that we were lucky enough to work with his daughters on putting all of this together. Diana and Valerie.
Diane and Valerie, yes.
What did I say?
You said Diana, but it's Diane.
And Valerie. Yes. Diane, it was awesome working with Diane and Valerie, putting together a wonderful homage and celebration of their father, his legacy, and this wonderful event that he impacted.
Yeah, I remember like Rib from Rib Effects like messaging me saying, I need a lot of photos of Seymour. What do you got? And so I just started sending anything I could, as well as any kind of YouTube clips, anything, because there's just not a ton out there. And so we think he did a brilliant job. And speaking of working with Diane and Valerie Vincent, they partnered also with Carl from merchandise to actually have Seymour merchandise here, which is incredible, including a blanket, a mug, stickers, magnets, all of that stuff. And so there's more exhibits that are lining this wall area, this whole wall section. And again, these are just we're all pretty much provided by Jeff Shattuck. And so that way, again, people can kind of revisit and learn. And so those were the main kind of components was, again, for people who are going to discover Scary Farm for the very first time, they can see just through this visual artwork, oh my gosh, this has truly been happening for a long time, and we can see how it's grown throughout the years.
It's another one of the areas that every time we come in, it's like, oh, let's look at this again. Oh, was this here last time? Did they add it? You know, all those types of things. One quick question on the staging, because like I think for a lot of fans, like for me, all I've ever really known of Seymour is the Halloween Haunt poster. So just having seen that would have been really cool. But having it there with the figure, was it kind of purposeful to tie it in with Elvira, like to have them back to back, or was that more of just kind of a happy thing that it fit that way?
No, it was designed to be a two-sided piece, knowing that the flow of the space, people would see both sides of it. And we just wanted to anchor this portion of the museum, which is a really neat centerpiece.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It works well together.
We're going to venture now into, I guess, one of my favorite sections of this whole Legacy store, which is the Ghost Town section. And we hear the wind, and we see the scare cloth, the wood, the skeletons. I mean, this is just something that somehow, some way gets that feel, that vibe of Ghost Town.
I think that the Ghost Town wind puts a chill in any Scary Farm fan spine, right?
Totally.
And we knew the store was going to open before the event, and so that was super important to us to really capture that feeling and get people genuinely excited for the 50th celebration, as well as just seeing imagery of the witch and the bride and all these awesome vintage pictures throughout the years, and just capturing the general spirit in a miniature diorama version of Ghost Town.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody, the team, just did such a great job in this little section here of this facade. I love it. I kind of want to live in this little section here. But again, that's just something that any Scary Farm fan is going to resonate with. And plus, we know that Ghost Town is really kind of the heart of what Not Scary Farm is. And it's the longest running scare zone in the world. It's part of the first Not Scary Farm in '73. So it needed to be represented. And I think this was pulled off in a wonderful way. And then behind the registers, we've got some vintage video that we worked with Rob Perez on, and more of the cool photos. And basically it was just John saying, hey, Ted, what do you got? Just start dumping as many photos as we can inside, our files and Dropboxes. But this countertop is part of the regular Emporium. I was telling the story earlier before we started recording. I remember John and I, being bundled up in the middle of like a Southern California winter, being here like way before park opening, and John's here and using the countertop as his desk for his laptop, going back there to get the charger and all of that stuff, getting electric, and he's taking all the measurements for what this could be, because this store was certainly not designed for something like this legacy store. The Emporium, this structure wasn't designed. But you want to talk a little bit about sort of how that kind of came to life, knowing that there were all these random pillars everywhere holding up the structure and everything?
Felt like I spent eternity behind that counter. When we got into this space, when we knew we were going to be doing the store, we asked entertainment, we asked maintenance. Nobody had a copy of the ground plan of the space, and that's just because it's been updated so many times throughout the years. Been so many different things, so we had to create one. And coming in here, having to map out all the ducting to make sure that our heights are lining up. And just really seeing, what was possible to do in here, how many scenes we could fit in here, how is the flow going to work, how do we have daytime, nighttime operations, how does it have a linear path and then an open exploration path. So there was a lot of time spent trying to figure out to get the best use out of this building.
It's an incredible, and I mean, anybody that's visited here knows, like, the second you walk in, it really hits. And again, we've been here with a lot of different guests that some have a lot of attachment to the event, some it's their first year at Scary Farm, and everybody, it seems to really hit in different ways, and it really has that kind of cross. And I know we've talked about, I think before we started recording, but just as an aside, like Chilling Chambers, Cinema Slasher, it really seems to be connecting with a lot of young people that just as we're in the queue going through it, or through the sometimes conga lines of going through it, it seems like they may not have as much history with the event, but they're loving it just the same, which that seems like a really tough, tight wire act to do.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. That's important. Like I've been saying the whole time, we want to try to reach, especially when we're kind of dealing with this anniversary, this landmark anniversary of how do we strategically speak to all of these different audiences, people who have been going since 1973, all the way to the people who are discovering it now. And so I'm happy to hear that folks are resonating with it.
Yeah.
Newer folks.
Well, we thank you both a ton for taking the time for this. As I said, for us, I think it's just as surreal because we started loving Scary Farm in '97, just coming our one night a year until there was a pass, and then we came more, and then we'd be over what we know now as S-Gate. We didn't realize that at the time, and looking through the wire and seeing the monsters there, and we're like, man, it'd be cool to be back there and see some stuff, and now to get to walk around with you guys and get that kind of look in, we always really appreciate this type of stuff. So any last thoughts on the 50th anniversary, on this store? besides just it's time to get some rest and sleep for maybe a couple of weeks when this is all done?
I mean, I think we're already the wheels are already turning for the future.
For the 60th?
It's forever, not Scary Farm forever, really, for us, I think. This place has become such a big part of who we are and part of us, so, we're just happy to be able to have a small contribution in the history of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it is, when I stop and think, it's very surreal of fan, website guy, becoming a monster, writing a book about it, helping now develop a lot of this stuff. It's just very awesome. But thank you, and you, behind the camera, Carmel, thank you so much, Parks and Cons, for allowing us to share this story, because we know your fellow fans, and so we wanted to really make sure that we're able to kind of tell the story together, because Jon and I are, he lives out of state now, and so we don't get to spend much time together physically. There's a ton of Zoom team meetings, phone calls, and stuff like that. So it's nice to actually be here physically to kind of walk you through all of this.
Thank you so much for all the efforts for the 50th on behalf of Scary Farm fans, as we know you're included, and then for taking some time out of your little bit of Halloween time here, because we know it's a very busy season for you guys to spend with us in here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.